Good morning, people. This is Tuesday, the 8th of February's devotion. I hope you have a fantastic day, man. We've been looking at the subject of love in the context of what Jesus said to that rich young ruler, where he said, this one thing you lack. If you get this one thing right, then a whole lot of other things becomes unnecessary or easier to do. And Jesus is saying to this young man, love God with everything. He has to be loved first and foremost. So we turn to 1 Corinthians 13 to find out what this love looks like. So far we've said love is patient, love is kind, and it is not jealous, which means it's content. I want to take you to the next one today and suggest to you that love is not boastful and love is not proud. Love is not proud. Well, if it's not boastful and it is not proud, then what is it? It is humble. I wish I had something more profound to tell you, but I don't know anything more profound than that. We spoke the other day about the fact that God is attracted to humility. Humble people are people that God is drawn towards. People who unashamedly declare their dependence upon God for everything. God has an insatiable desire to spend time with them. Now Philippians 2 verse 6 to 8, I'd like to read that to you. It's talking about the attitude of Christ and telling us that our attitude should be the same as Jesus. It says this, verse 6, Jesus, who being in the very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be grasped. Here he was, God in human flesh, and yet he let his flesh dominate for this period of time to become a human being. But he made himself nothing, taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. Folks, if God humbled himself to the extent of becoming part of his creation, man, it didn't get lower than that. And we say to God, how low can you go that you would want to be able to be a part of your creation just like that? Now, humility is a great attribute. And Jesus, when we look at the Gospels, he found it very easy to befriend humble people. He happened to be always hanging around the lost. He found friends amongst the rejected in society. He found friendship and camaraderie amongst those who were poor and those who were marginalized and those who were ostracized from society. Jesus found it very easy to spend time with humble people. He spent time playing with the kids. Nobody else wanted to play with the little blighters except Jesus. Jesus wanted to draw alongside those little kids, take them on his knee, embrace them, and play hide and seek with children, man. And everybody else saying, Jesus, isn't there anything more important to do? And Jesus said, I don't know anything more important to do than playing with the kids. And he was drawn to the humility that comes from the beauty of a child. You see, for Jesus, the road to success kind of looks something like this. The road to success will take you for a journey through the valley of humility. It will take you up the path of patience and across the plain of perseverance if you want to get to where you want to go. Let's have a look at those three things. First of all, this journey to the success as Jesus measures success is going to take you through the valley of humility. I have a great example. Have a look at Moses, who had to go through all three of these journey aspects in order to get where God wanted him to be. God had to humble Moses. Took him out of Egypt, and Moses killed someone in Egypt. He thought he was going to be the next prince, and he was going to be the next guy to take over from Pharaoh and be his sidekick. And God had to humble him, and he put him in the middle of a desert, and this was the path of patience. He took him into the valley of humility, realized he wasn't who he thought he was, realized that God had a purpose for him, but before God could use him, he had to humble him. 40 years, people, 40 years in a desert, being a shepherd for his father-in-law. Again, how low can you go in that? And Moses came out of that desert and stood at that burning bush, a changed man. Came out of Egypt arrogant and hard and thought he knew everything, into the desert, only to find he had to walk through the valley of humility and along the path of patience. 40 years of patience in Midian. He thought his life was over. He thought there was nothing left to live, but he found out to be different. Then he had to walk across the barren plain of perseverance. Another 40 years. 40 years walking through the wilderness with the children of Israel being disobedient. And Moses got up every day and thought, do I have to keep doing this? You know, if you read the book of Moses' life, it's a great story, isn't it? It's a wonderful story. But I find it intriguing that in this whole entire story of Moses, it's about this much of the portion in your Bible. There are novels much longer than that about other people's lives. But this great man of God, this great leader of God, the story is only this long. So you say in the course of the 40 years, was that all that Moses was doing? There were a few highlights, Sinai and the victories that he had in the wilderness. There were a lot of lowlights as well. And you say, well, what was happening between the highlights and the lowlights in this amazing man's story? Because all we have is the highlights and the lowlights. You know what he was doing? Just plotting. He was just plotting. See, people, listen carefully. There are no shortcuts to spirituality. Most of it is just plotting. Get up every day. Love God. Read His Word. Spend time with Him. Witness from Him. The next day, get out of bed. Love God. Serve God. Read His Word. Share your faith with others. Love people. Serve them. Next day, ditto, ditto, ditto. There is an awful lot of plotting. So if anybody ever tells you there's a shortcut to spirituality, if you go to this guy and he lays his hands on you, don't believe it. It must be an odd experience, but it's not going to lead you to a greater spiritual depth. It's basically because you plot. So keep plotting, keep persevering. Go through the valley of humility. It's a great place to be, not very comfortable. Go through the path of patience, keep going, and across the barren plains of perseverance. You'll get there eventually. Have a good day, people. Cheers.